Let us bring in strategic military intel analyst and former U.S. defense intel officer, Rebekah Koffler. Rebekah, are the walls closing in on President Biden?
I believe they are, and these revelations are exactly potentially going to present the evidence that President Biden is compromised. I mean, the whistleblowers' allegations are very consistent with the behavior of President Biden and his family, specifically Hunter Biden, described in Miranda Devine's book. It's very, very clear what was going on. It's peddling influence to foreign governments. Remember, 10% for the big guys. And so the only way the Democrats are saying, well, there's no evidence, but the only way to actually uncover specific evidence is to investigate. And the DOJ and the FBI are not investigating the matter. If that were the other side, you know, the Republicans who were implicated in such things, the investigation would just immediately happen.
Yeah, let's talk about these federal agencies for a second, because, you know, there is a lot that we still don't know, but the Republicans want to know what the DOJ has done with this information, if they've acted on it, if they've not, if they've even looked into it, really. So you served on U.S. intelligence for a long time, and you said the government agencies have really changed over the course of time. Elaborate on that.
Yes, I spent my intelligence career on the Russia and Putin target, right? And what I saw is extreme politicization of intelligence. What do I mean by that? You know, the intelligence community and the law enforcement community, such as the FBI and the DOJ, they're supposed to serve the American people. They're supposed to uphold justice and investigate. Well, what I've seen is that what happens is the threats are politicized, right? I warned for years the intelligence community about Putin's plans. And I even wrote a book about it, Putin's Playbook, Russia's secret plan to defeat America. Obama wanted to do a reset with Putin, right? He wanted to be friends with him. And therefore, all the warnings were ignored. And now we are caught blindsided and unprepared for this war. And we're wasting billions and billions of dollars. So another thing that happens is, remember the 51 senior intelligence officials who said, lying knowingly to the American people, that the Hunter Biden story was Russian disinformation. It wasn't, and they knew that. And that's what I saw. The terrible, you know, malignant, it's almost like cancer. Mm-hmm. There are a lot of good people in the FBI, obviously, the lower levels, the worker bees, but then the management, the higher-ups are totally compromised.
Brett Tolman, former U.S. attorney, said on our air that a decision to bury an indictment, or bury a document like this, I should say, from the world had to come from one of two people, Christopher Wray or Merrick Garland, once Joe Biden took office. So when you hear things like that, as you've studied Putin and the KGB and the Soviet-style use of the intel apparatus to benefit the elite, is that what is happening in our intel world right now? CIA, FBI, to benefit the ruling class?
100%. They have become the American version of the KGB. Just like the KGB serves the interest of Putin and the Putin regime, and back in the Soviet Union, they served the interest of CPSU, the Communist Party, and not the Russian people. Mm-hmm. That's what we see today. They are stifling the voices, you know, the whistleblower who disclosed these kinds of potential schemes, you know. But when it comes to, remember, the whistleblower who alleged that President Trump had some sort of improper dealings or put pressure on Zelensky, he was celebrated. They jumped on that. But in this case, they are trying to bury the story. Yes, they have become a U.S. version of the KGB, our intelligence agencies, and our law enforcement. The upper echelons, I want to be clear, they're honorable people, intelligence officers, law enforcement officers, but they're mismanaged by corrupt officials, particularly in the Biden administration.
I think it's important to make one clarification here. We've been talking about influence peddling with the Biden administration for years now. Influence peddling, let's call it not nice. But when you call it bribery, bribery is a crime. And that is what was alleged in this whistleblower document. That's why this has been elevated from, oh, that's not good, to that's criminal. Ash.
Yeah, and then staying on, obviously, Ukraine and Russia, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky is denying Russia's allegations that Ukraine tried to kill Putin with a drone attack on Wednesday. Watch this.
We don't attack Putin or Moscow. We fight on our territory. We are defending our villages and cities.
Your thoughts, Rebecca?
My preliminary intelligence analysis says that there are three possible scenarios. The most likely one, that this is a false flag operations orchestrated by the Russians. What do I mean by that? The Russians have staged this whole thing to justify a massive escalation in the Ukraine war, right? Scenario number two, yes, I don't rule out the possibility that the Ukrainians did attempt a strike on the Kremlin, but that is not likely, because that would be suicidal. That would give Putin the justification to just unleash, a massive strike on Kyiv, targeting the residents of Zelensky. The timing is very suspicious, though, because we're a few days away from May 9th, which is the victory day for the Russians in World War II, that they call the Great Patriotic War. And it's a sacred day for the Russians. So it would be very convenient for Putin to just stage something like that to demonstrate to the Russian people that, look, you are under attack. Russia is attacked by, and it's not just Ukraine, but the West. That's the narrative that Putin is trying to propagate there. And that would immediately galvanize the people who are even anti-war. There's a small Russian population that is still anti-war. And the third scenario is by a third party. But more investigation definitely needed. But unfortunately, we may never find out exactly what happened and whether anything actually did happen, because we're talking Russia. It's not like they're going to allow Western investigators to do forensic analysis.
There's a phrase we keep hearing when we talk about this. The timing is very suspicious, and I'm starting to think that it's very calculated, but that's just my opinion. So, Rebecca, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Likewise.
I'm Steve Ducey.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.